You know what, dude? I just wasn't.
It was in
Physics.
your possession. That's
physics.
Physics happened.
No more questions from you.
We should just stick to metaphysics happening.
Okay.
I keep thinking Norway flag.
A Byzantine monk made those for us a long time ago. It's pretty cool.
If we don't have the sounds of Sunday, you'd have the Byzantine hour. That's what was on.
Sweet. I like the Byzantine hour. I don't even know what it is, but it sounds like something I would like. I like the Byzantines. It's my favorite Eastern rite. I would suppose.
You like
I like
like them?
I like the Byzantines better than the Byzantines.
Ooh, bazinga. Bazinga.
Let's get it off of you.
Warning, the Catholic Man Show contains...
Give the people what they want.
Contains high levels of David Niles.
You might as well say that.
Good evening, guys. Good evening, good evening, good evening.
It's might as well.
Good evening. Baby. Hey, what,
Yo.
if you had to pick one Dave Matthews song
Yo.
for everybody to listen to get the idea of here's what Dave Matthews encompasses, what Dave Matthews songs would that be?
I don't know Dave Matthews.
Oh, I thought you were asking me, and I don't know, man.
My wife and I were having this conversation.
Sorry, I'm trying to ride side saddle to the left and talk to you on the right.
Yeah. It's a conundrum.
You can maybe even make the chair go perpendicular to what you... Yeah. What if you did that?
There.
Would that be better?
Oh, yeah.
You like that better?
There we go.
You got the flag perfectly on your shoulder.
America, America.
Boom. Boom.
Patriotic.
And I'm proud to be an American. All right. Should we wait for Juan? What do we...
No, we're live. We're streaming right now. We need to go. We need to start. Yeah, we are streaming.
Oh, boy.
People are probably getting annoyed that we haven't started yet.
Okay.
They need some more jokes.
No more.
Oh,
jokes.
we got jokes.
Warning, the Catholic Man Show contains high levels of manliness. If you think you may be too weak to withstand the manliness represented in the following program, please do yourself a favor and stop listening now. If you choose to continue in spite of this warning, if at any time you feel yourself overcome by the manliness, stop immediately.
The bumper music
and
needs to be
consult your
unmuted.
closest medical
No.
professional.
Yes, it does.
And now, for the not-so-fair, faint, or frilly, we present the Catholic Man Show.
Thanks for your contribution today.
Do you have a bottle opener?
Yeah. Welcome to the Catholic Man Show. We are on the Lord's team, the winning side. So raise your glass. I'm Adam Minahan, sitting here with David Niles. And wow, that music just cut straight off.
I've got the buttons.
Yeah, Juan is late this evening, so Dave is in control of the buttons, which is why we're having issues.
Look, Father has a button. I have a button.
I have a button.
But I don't. That's okay.
That's your button.
We do have Father Bryan Ketterer with us. Father, how many times has this been on the show?
Maybe something like 6.
I was gonna guess 6.
5 only made it on the air because I believe one episode was lost a few years ago.
Yeah.
That could be.
I wonder whose fault that was.
Probably mine.
Technologies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Metaphysics. Fault.
No. You saying it's God's fault?
But I am excited to have you here, Father. Thank you so much for
Excited to be
joining us.
back.
It was awesome to receive a text message from him today. He was like, "Hey, I have a free day. I know you guys are recording.
Bring me
I
on.
was like, come on, let's do this." So it was exciting. And not only that, but you brought a beverage that you've not told us about yet.
I have brought a very special man beverage. It's one that I bought about 6 years ago in Colorado.
Utopias.
It's a I forget if it's 2013 or a 2015. I guess
pretty
if I bought it
trippy.
6 years ago, it's probably a 2013.
It's a pretty trippy bottle.
Sam Adams Utopias. So
Ooh.
what this is the world's strongest beer, world's highest ABV beer. Now some people might say, well, what about Icebox? They're like 40, 50%. Well, this is the strongest beer that has not been distilled in any way. This beer is 28% alcohol.
What?
Holy cow.
It's produced every 2 years by Sam Adams Brewery. Little Sam Adams right there.
Wow.
In the door. It's shaped like one of their brew houses. 750 milliliter bottle of 28% beer. So it's actually a blend of beers, I think going back like 20 years. So they do it every 2 years. They age it in all sorts of barrels, all sorts of malts, and then they do blends from previous years with new years. So some of this beer has been in barrels for almost 20 years.
Awesome.
Like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, who knows how many different barrels. So
Dang.
it's a beer I was hoping to open for my 5th anniversary, which was this summer. Never really got a good chance to do that. My birthday was last week. David's birthday was last week. That's a good opportunity to open it.
I'm a pretty cool guy.
So, yeah.
So
He's a great guy.
I'm a great
We're
guy.
glad,
Great guy.
We're glad you're here to watch us drink this. But also, when you buy a bottle of this, it gives you a little code in your little paper thing that it comes with, and you can get a free crystal Riddell glass. As you can tell by the 3 that I have over the years acquired 3 of these bottles, one which I drank, one which is waiting for maybe my 10th anniversary.
Apparently it keeps very well.
It does.
Okay.
So it
Yeah, I want to see.
probably doesn't have any
may
carbonation.
See the bottle.
It probably doesn't have any carbonation.
Probably doesn't have any carbonation. It's room temperature.
Oh,
a little carbonation.
I heard it.
So it's really meant to be drank like a cognac or something like that.
Wow.
And like we can drink it, cap it, and then drink it over the next couple months.
I'm gonna let you pour it, Father.
yes.
Since why don't we briefly talk about? There's a few people who have tuned into the episode
Thank
for the
you.
first time, or maybe one of the first times, and they don't maybe know the format. Dave, why don't you tell them what the format of our show?
Yeah, we
typically
really
is?
haven't done that in a long time. Okay,
Yeah.
so we do 3 things on almost every episode. They are, number 1, we open, review, and enjoy a man beverage, which we are about to do. We drink on air because God made the things of this earth good, and they should be enjoyed for their goodness. Gosh darn it. And so that's what we want to do. We want to promote the idea of a holy leisure. And then the second thing we do is we highlight a man gear of some kind, dude stuff, everything that a man has or wishes he had. And why should a man have one of these things, or why shouldn't he? Maybe. We've
Maybe.
never done one of those.
Yeah.
You know.
Here's what you shouldn't have.
We could do a
Yeah.
man gear that is like, you know what? You shouldn't have that. Maybe that wouldn't really be a man gear,
That
though,
would be
would it?
a
Anyway,
lack of
then we have a
gear.
topic. Okay, so that's the three segments. This, what we're doing right now, the aroma is, you know what this smells like? We have a tahini salad dressing at
Is it
home
like
that
a balsamic.
that I eat a lot, and it smells just like this.
Yeah.
It's very
A lot of
cherry.
Raisin, dark
Yeah.
cherry.
Well, let's cheers, and we
Yeah.
can drink. We're on the Lord's team.
The winning side.
So raise your glass. Cheers to Jesus.
Cheers to
Cheers.
Jesus.
Wow. Okay. So, what does a bottle like this run? Like, so you said it only goes. You
Yeah.
only can get it like once every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
Okay,
So,
so the-
a bottle of this, retail, you can get it for anywhere from about $160 to $200.
Wow.
So we're not messing around. It's
Yeah.
the most expensive alcohol I've ever bought by far. But it's something you just had to do.
Super
I
cool,
came
though.
across a bottle here and there a couple times when I was in Colorado, and I thought, I can find someone that will enjoy drinking this with me.
I'm glad
yeah,
to be.
I'm glad- yeah.
So the
I
first
mean, I'm a cool guy.
Yeah.
So the first bottle I actually opened. We had a little celebration a couple days before my ordination, my priestly ordination. So I cracked open a bottle of that, and then actually just kept it and shared it with people over like the next 3 months. Just all dozens of people who'd never had it got to try a little bit. So,
well, so what is it about this beer that makes it able to keep? Because not all beer keeps.
Well, part of it's the ABV, 28%. It's like a low-proof whiskey almost. So that is the biggest component of it.
Okay.
But it's already been aged in barrels, some for anywhere from like 1 to 15, 20 years, because they've done a blend of past years all the way back to the first year of this. So
which is how long
really
ago? Do we know? Do you remember?
At this point, almost I think like 25 years or something.
Did they invent this kind of beer? I mean, did they come up with this style all themselves?
I think they were really the ones who. I mean, this style has been around to some degree, but I think they really like took it just way like over the edge.
Yeah.
They actually had to develop their own yeast that could ferment up to these high ABVs.
Oh, sure.
Because they basically took a strand of champagne yeast, which could ferment it, like really dry and really high ABV. But they actually had to develop it because most yeast would die at around like 17, 18%. So they had to develop this yeast over 5 to 10 years so it could actually handle upwards of 20% alcohol.
So that's just like slowly letting the strains that can't handle, they die off.
I guess survival of the fittest.
You have a little bit left and you cultivate it, and then you take it a little higher, and
super bugs.
More will die out. Yeah. Wow.
So this is the 2013 edition.
Yeah.
Of Utopia. We included an additional element of complexity and flavor by blending in a portion of our barrel-aged Cosmic Mother Funk, which is a wild ale that has been aged in Hungarian oak tons.
Oh, I definitely got the Hungarian oak.
Yes.
And the tahini dressing.
creating bright fruit notes of cherries and plums, and it's just a hint of sourness and earthiness.
It is, God, the smell is so good. It's like, man, you know, like sometimes you walk into a cigar room, or there's just a few places, or if you ever go to a whiskey distillery, you like walk in and it's just this deep penetrating smell that you just love.
Yep.
That kind of reminds me of this a little bit. Like there's such a depth to the smell.
You just keep discovering new smells, new flavors. And that's why you drink it at room temperature, to let that all open up.
Okay, let's talk about that for just a second. The difference in drinking something, like what happens whenever you drink something super cold? Like you have Bud Light, you put it in there at 32 degrees. For what reason, and why do you drink stouts at a lower temperature?
Bud Light doesn't have a lot of
temperature
flavor complexity, and so you just want something cold, refreshing, crisp, clean, all of that.
Right.
Something with a lot more complexity, especially something that's been in barrels, higher alcohol content, something with more yeast or esters, they open up more as it warms. So some of like barley wines, imperial stouts, you want to drink just slightly cooler than room temperature. Sometimes I'll even pull a barley wine or stout out of my closet and just drink it at room temp.
That's where you keep all your beers.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and
let's remember that next time we go over to his house.
I mean, if you have a fridge, that's the best place to keep it. But
depending on the beer as well. But is there a correlation between literally the color of the beer and the temperature that it should be enjoyed at? I mean, I don't think of a light colored beer as something that needs to be.
I've never thought about that, but I could see in general probably.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about it right now. It seems like the darker the beer color, the more you benefit from having it at the right temperature.
Yeah, I think it'd be similar with wine. It's like a darker has more tannins. You probably enjoy that better, warmer.
Yeah. You know what I love about this is that the barrel is so well balanced. You have some barrel-aged beers, and you drink them and you say, wow, okay, I get it. There's a barrel in here. You know? Yep. But this one is not overwhelming.
Here is beer in the barrel.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So when we get back, we're going to talk about the man gear today is going to be what to get or not to get a priest on a special occasion. And then our topic tonight is going to be about longanimity.
Longanimity.
There's an echo in this room, apparently. We'll be right back. Yes, we heard it. We heard how loud the outro music was.
I put it down. I put it down. Yeah.
It was here.
Could you approve the
It shouldn't. It shouldn't
live
have to be
stream
down that
on the
that low.
TU
though.
Newman?
Like
Yeah.
It's
a little
not
bit lower
posted.
than that.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, like
You
say
probably have
right
to
there.
approve it.
That shouldn't be too loud. I timed the finish. It's a 3-minute finish.
Oh.
For the drink?
A
Yeah,
3-minute
it is a
drink
long
finish.
It's a very long finish.
This isn't.
Here,
I actually,
Jim, you should have a little bit of it.
Father,
a little?
I actually remember you talking about this
The whole room.
the last time you were on the show, I think. And then, because what really reminded me was looking at that bottle thinking, where have I seen that before? And then I remembered we had people posting pictures of it on the council page because you were talking about it.
I'm trying to find. All these glasses don't look clean.
Good to see you. Thanks for sharing your gift with us.
I've never dealt with live videos. So.
Oh yeah, this is clean.
Is there
Wow,
something
it's
like on the page?
I didn't see it
Very
on the
amazing.
page on your TU Newman Center page.
It says that we've been mentioned.
I think it is
Yeah.
the first time
You
that
have to approve that.
I think it's the first time that I actually like. You know what? I can actually taste the raisin.
The dark cherry and raisins are.
The dark cherry.
It's because it's the maltiness. A lot of times those malty
Yeah.
drinks have the cherry raisin taste to
Yeah.
it.
But you know what? It does remind me of a cognac.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I-
really different.
Facebook is trying to get me to follow the Catholic Man Show. I do.
All right, let's keep going. Let's do this.
Bring me there.
Ignore that. I made a mistake. Just a
All
moment
right.
ago.
He needs the the buttons.
Mm. The maltiness.
The maltiness.
I wonder why the volume was so loud. That's weird.
So does it keep feeding on the during the break, or do you like
On
pause the
Facebook.
feed?
On
Facebook.
Facebook, it does. Yeah.
Margaret's
Awesome.
still saying that something's up with the volume.
Is it too loud?
It's fine.
Maybe Margot's volume's too loud.
She was just commenting on it from previously. All right, let's keep going. This is super cool, though. This drink. And it's also super cool that you have 3 glasses.
I know.
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles here with Adam Minahan and Father Bryan Ketterer.
That's me. All the ers.
Father, thank you for your priesthood.
Heck yeah. Thanks Jesus for my priesthood.
Thank you, Jesus, for Father Ketterer's priesthood. You just celebrated your 5th year as a priest.
I did.
How many
Well, back in May.
How many masses?
holy sacrifices of
Oh
the
my
Mass are we
gosh.
up to?
Like 22, 30 or something like that. So
It's actually
little over
do you still
2200.
you still have an accurate count?
I do. I have a spreadsheet that I keep open on my computer and add mass, when I did it, where I did it, and who I did it for, or what intention.
Wow.
That is
So-
awesome. How many
Wow,
times
that's
is
a
my
lot.
name
That
on
is a
there?
lot
How
to
many-
keep up with.
I don't know. We'll have to do a little search.
Oh, that'd be
Yeah,
cool.
just do a quick query. Can we query it?
We could.
We could do that. The answer, Adam, is yes. You're
Okay.
you're giving me that I'm not sure look.
I
The
don't
answer
know.
is yes, we could.
Let me drive home and check.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll be back after the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so before we talk about the man gear or the man gears, can we talk about this glass real fast? What
can.
is it? Why it was specially designed for this drink?
I
Do you know?
assume so. I don't know.
What is it? I've never seen it
it's
before.
a Riedel glass. It's a German company that does really nice glassware.
Okay.
I believe
That's
it's
how you
actually
say it?
crystal.
Riedel? I hear people say Riedel as
I
well.
don't know. Could be. I don't speak German.
Whatever.
Um,
Germans.
Yeah. So yeah, it's one that comes special with each bottle you purchase. So you just type in the code online and they ship it to you. So
Oh, it looks nice.
uh,
I like it.
I really like it. It's
Got
nice,
a nice
and tall. It feels-
base.
yeah, it has a nice heft on the bottom.
all
low,
about the base.
Low center of gravity, so you don't tip it over.
Right.
But the top parts.
It's just
like
like a
nice
fatter
and thin.
Glencairn
Yeah.
glass.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You could drink whiskey out of this really nice too.
It's like a fatter
I
Glencairn
have from
glass.
time to
Yeah.
time.
Okay, so let's talk about the man gears.
Okay. Yeah, so I had this problem. I have this problem every once in a while with my wife. We struggle to figure out, like, okay, it's the priest's birthday or his priestly anniversary, ordination anniversary,
Yeah.
or Christmas, or there's some kind of event that's like, I need to get Father something, a gift. And so I thought, well, since Father Ketterer is coming over, let's just talk about like things to get a priest or things not to get a priest.
Yeah.
Because I've been just as guilty as probably anybody else by getting them things that's like, that wasn't a good idea. They have plenty of those.
Right.
Like, that's not something I should
I don't need another plunger. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So let's talk. Well, I don't know. Maybe. So let's talk about things that we should not.
People get you plungers?
No.
Okay.
Never have.
Okay, I was gonna say like that is.
But that's something I don't
that
need.
is weird.
Don't get a priest a plunger.
You know what I think you need? I think a plunger.
Yeah.
Like,
So let's talk about what the things we like priests typically don't need.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a broad brush. Each priest is gonna be individual, but this is hopefully give you an idea.
yeah.
So in general, we don't need another crucifix. Most of us have a lot of crucifixes, maybe walls full of crucifixes, or boxes full if the walls run out of space.
Right.
Generally, we don't need another crucifix. Rosaries, most of us have a lot of rosaries. We probably give a lot of rosaries away. Generally, we don't need another rosary. Maybe a Catholic Man Show rosary or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
On occasion, if it's a very special rosary with some special, whatever. And so,
I feel like if you're going to give a rosary to a priest, it would have to be really like this was John Paul II's rosary, not like, not like I touched.
I'll take that.
I mean, but like this is the one he used. It's like yes, I want that rosary. But in general, even for just the average faithful Catholic, not the average Catholic, but the average faithful Catholic, probably has no less than 12 rosaries lying around and doesn't need one.
In every spot.
Yeah, exactly. And so unless it's just really extraordinary.
Yeah. Or if you know the priest well and you're like, oh, he's, the priest loves this saint. I was here where the saint was.
Yeah.
And I bought this rosary and prayed it at the tomb of the saint and touched it to the tomb. Like, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But if you just run down to the Catholic store and buy a rosary, priest probably has plenty of rosaries already.
Yeah, I was I like shadowed basically Father Donald Calloway for the Wichita Family Conference. I was kind of like his helper, basically what it was, and it was amazing how many people ran up to him and was like, "Oh, I want to give you this rosary," like at the conference. And he ended up like at one point he showed me like, "Here's all the rosaries I received for this conference," and it was like 2 handfuls, and he was like, he goes, thankfully, I give most of them away to my mom, and she gives them to people who need them.
Yeah.
Because he was like, everywhere I go, he's the Marian priest. He talks about Mary all the time, and the benefits of the weapon of the rosary, and so everybody
he wrote the book.
Yeah.
On the rosary.
Yeah, Champions of the Rosary.
Yeah, I'm sure he doesn't have any rosaries. So.
Right. So anyway, so I know that sounds like a good idea, but it's not. I mean, he has plenty of those. So what else?
Yeah. Another one is it's maybe kind of goes both ways, but often books. Sometimes it depends if a priest is like, oh, he's really interested in this particular topic.
Sure.
Or like been kind of looking for this book that maybe hard to find or something like that. But, often people give us books that maybe they found enlightening or helpful, but sometimes if it's not something we're particularly interested in or need, or maybe we've read or whatnot, sometimes the books kind of end up piling up too. But like also priests are kind of the masters at regifting.
You have to be.
Little secret.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, you have to learn that skill.
If you give us something that we don't need, we'll find someone who does need it and use that. So, like, a gift isn't ever wasted.
Sure. Yeah, and that's true with the rosaries.
A few things that we get regularly that kind of just pile up, really.
Right, and so normally, whenever you give a gift to a priest, you want it to be, you want him to be able to use it. You don't want to just like, here's another, like say crucifix or something like that. I want you to be able to use this. So, if you're going to go something Catholic, would it be safe to say like you should hear him say he would want that, or maybe has mentioned it to other people, or
like I think it's harder to give gifts to someone you don't know because you're just, I don't know, I'm in the Catholic bookstore looking for something. All right, maybe the priest will like that.
Right.
That's harder.
He's holy.
Yeah.
He'll probably like this.
But if you know the priest well, then it's easier to give something more meaningful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, is there a safe go-to? Like, what about a gift card to a restaurant? Is there something like that most priests would enjoy or would use at least?
Again, that depends a little bit. If you know where the priest likes to eat, that helps.
Yeah.
But I can remember when I was at the parish, I would get at Christmas like a whole like 2-inch stack of gift cards. And I think it took me about 2 years while I was at TU before I finally got that stack down to just 2 or 3 gift cards left.
Right.
So it took me a couple years to work through like 2 years of gift cards.
Uh-huh.
Because sometimes there are places I don't really go to, and so then it's like, well, I may have this gift card, but it's across town, or I don't really go
Yeah.
there.
And it's $15
Yeah.
and
So sometimes I would just give them to people like, hey, go enjoy a dinner.
Sure.
So again, like no gift is ever wasted.
Mhm.
But if it's places the priest likes to go, I love Brahms, a little local dairy creamery and restaurant. I use those in like 2 weeks.
Brahms is awesome.
But even if there's like a place, like maybe a nice shoe store that priests, sometimes we don't always have the like best shoes. We walk around in shoes that aren't good for our feet.
Yeah.
Maybe get them a gift card to a nice shoe store and be like, hey, go buy yourself a nice pair of shoes.
Okay, let's
like that.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about nice gifts, because there's some people who have the money to spend like for a nice, like I have $500 that I could spend on a priest, or
Hey.
Do you?
I don't. I was saying hypothetically.
Oh,
Hypothetically,
okay.
not me personally. The thing about me is I don't have a lot of
Yeah,
money.
that's the thing about me.
Right, is I don't have a lot. But if I did,
Because I spend it on myself.
Yeah.
my family. But if I did, what would be some cool
Yeah.
things?
So I think again maybe like a nice clothing store where you can get a nice suit jacket or something like that.
Yeah.
Thinking my own suit jackets, I think I bought when I went into seminary like 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Probably could have a nicer one at this point.
Sure.
So if someone got me a nice gift card to Dillard's or whatever some store like that, I'd probably go in and actually buy myself a nice suit jacket.
Okay, is
which
there
we wear pretty regularly.
Sure. Is there a secret priest catalog or anything? Like I know when priests are going to Rome, they'll kind of maybe take a like, hey, does anybody need anything? I'm going. Is there a Rome catalog that you can order?
There's just all different stores in Rome, so you really have to know which one the priest shops at.
So there's not like a if you
I buy
want
my
to
clerics
order
from Barbacone, but I can order them online at this point. So
yeah.
I don't even know if they have gift cards or.
Would
whatever.
the Liturgy of the Hours be a good one for priests?
Well, if they don't
maybe,
have it,
maybe,
it would be.
Maybe a
Yeah,
newly
'cause-
ordained
Yeah.
priest.
So
well, no, because
most
they'll have
of them
because
probably
they'll
get it in seminary.
Okay.
right. Yeah, so that would be someone if someone's going
But
to seminary.
if you
get that
notice they
for 'em.
have an old copy that maybe they inherited from somebody and it's falling apart, maybe get them a nice copy.
What's the coolest gift that you've ever received?
Really, some of the coolest gifts aren't actually material gifts. Like I'll get a card and it says, "My family prayed in my our holy hour for you."
That's
And I'm like,
a holy thing to say.
if more people did that, I'm like, I don't need gift cards. Just
Yeah.
do some of that for me.
And what about like making a donation to like
Oh,
if you
yeah.
can find out what their favorite charity is,
Yep.
saying, hey, we made a donation in your honor,
Yeah.
whatever.
My aunt does that every year.
Mhm.
Kind of because she would ask like, "What do you need?" I'm like, "I don't really need a lot. A lot of things that I need are taken care of." So she would just every year make a donation to some charity that either I would appreciate or one that's dear to her. And so that's a great meaningful gift actually for me.
I give to charities that Dave does not appreciate in his honor. So like I give it to PETA or something like that and say for David Niles and make
Yeah.
a big old plaque and have them hang it up in their office and stuff like that.
Hey,
I don't even.
charity works in all sorts of mysterious ways.
Like that's just he's a fool.
People eating tasty animals.
Yeah.
To PETA,
Okay.
we have no one to fight against.
What about
In general, I typically say consumables or checks or money.
liquor?
So,
Okay,
yeah.
or just straight up
Yeah,
cash.
so yeah.
Cause you guys, I mean, it's not like
Yeah, because we can either spend it on ourselves or donate
Right.
it. But whiskey, beer, things like that we can consume, they're not accumulating.
yeah, something with longevity.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
when we get back, we're going to talk about a sub-virtue, longanimity. We'll be right back.
I just want to smell this all the time. Like if you take a long, deep breath of it, it just like the smell keeps changing as you keep smelling. It's incredible.
For a
Mysteries
moment,
to uncover.
I got like a hint of chamay, of like blue chamay.
Oh yeah.
I was like, Oh, there was too many, and it went away.
Smell it again.
It's elusive.
Aloof. It's aloof.
That's slightly
No.
different.
It
Yeah.
would be aloof.
Aloof is like kind of wishy-washy.
But it was there.
Okay.
Ready?
I'm okay to keep going if you want to.
I'm ready.
Yep.
Okay.
Look
One,
away.
that's
Look
weird.
away if you're going to do
And I
that.
want you to just focus on the button pushing.
Is there any way we can chastise him?
We'll wait till we go off.
I will
Yeah.
say knee to you. Is that my hat, Juan? Is that my hat?
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. Sitting here with David Niles and Father Bryan Ketterer. We're going to talk about a sub-virtue of fortitude this evening. We're going to talk about longanimity. Longanimity has to deal with suffering. So I wanted to start out maybe by painting a little bit of a picture or like a quick story, and then we can get into maybe what it is. And Father actually at dinner time kind of had a good idea as
So you
well.
have a story. Everybody,
Well-
everybody, grab your carpet square.
Yep.
Well, so suffering is
Indian style.
Indian
Yep.
style, yeah. Crisscross applesauce.
That is racially insensitive.
So I'm gonna keep going. Suffering is a weird thing in this world that a lot of people struggle with, and typically what happens is when you meet suffering, one of two things happen. There's either a rebellion or an embrace. There's a rebellion or there's an embrace, and so I was thinking about this on my drive home from work today, and I was thinking, like, what's a good example of this? And the example that came to me was there were two thieves that got caught, and the thieves were subject to death. They were put to death,
I think I've
by
heard this story.
crucifixion.
I think I've heard this story.
right? And both of them were doing the same, got caught for the same thing, same punishment.
Cohorts, maybe.
Possibly, one would say. Somebody, namely Jesus Christ, also got put to death, got put right in the middle of them
Hypothetically, at the same time.
at the same time. Jesus says, Father, forgive them, for they don't know not what they do. So both of them realize there's some kind of power, there's something unique about this man. There's some kind of power that's going on.
Yeah.
Well, the people who take suffering and rebel against it, the power would be to take away that suffering, because why are we suffering? We don't need to suffer. Let's try to minimize suffering as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the thieves says, if you're the Son of God, bring us down from this cross. Why are we suffering? The other thief, who is embracing this, realizes and embraces the suffering, says, no, we're suffering because it is just. We've been caught, and this is a just punishment. And then he looks over to Jesus and says, Jesus, remember me when you enter into the kingdom of heaven. Remember me. And so he takes his suffering and he embraces that suffering, realizing that there is an end to this suffering, which is not of this world. It is this hope that he has within him that this suffering that he's enduring will be rectified, will be justified in the next life.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about that, and I was like, well, that kind of is what longanimity is. You could kind
You
of...
should write that story down, by the way. That was a good story.
Thank you.
Maybe
Thank you.
even 4 times. If you wrote it four times, I think we
Possibly
remember
4
it.
times.
Yeah.
Yes. A little different language each time.
Like
a little
really
different way.
close, but just a little
Right.
different.
Exactly. So, but I think I
Yeah.
think that is a good example of what longanimity is, because when we're dealing with suffering, we have to figure out, like, why are we suffering? What is the purpose of suffering? That's kind of the strongest argument for atheism, I think, is the problem of evil, the problem with suffering.
Yeah.
And one, again, we either rebel or we embrace.
So, okay, now you've painted the picture.
I'm gonna.
I want the definition as well.
No, well, I'm gonna hand it off.
Okay.
Okay,
Let's do the definition.
I can do the
Yeah, I mean,
definition
I
first.
think that's just
Okay,
a
so
nice balanced,
held us in suspense.
Okay.
approach to an opening.
Okay, so the definition is really like it's a disposition to bear injury patiently, or to bear suffering patiently, it's longanimity, so it talks a lot. It's very coincides with magnanimity that we've discussed before on the show.
Mm-hmm.
So St. Thomas talks about this, and he says that it sounds a lot like it's patience.
It sounds a lot like something that would live in the ocean. Is really
That's
what
right.
it sounds.
Yeah.
I was waiting for that.
Yeah. It's sea anemone, longanimity.
Oh my gosh! Now we're never going to be able to say the word.
But it sounds a lot like patience, right? But St. Thomas says it's actually more. It's closer to magnanimity because longanimity is focused on the hope. It's focused on the positive. Patience is more focused on enduring the suffering.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
more of enduring
To suffer with. Yeah.
Longanimity is saying I'm embracing this cross, looking at the hope that is within it.
Okay.
So a great example again would be like Saint Monica. Saint Monica had a beautiful virtue of longanimity because she knew that she was focused not on all of the things that St. Augustine was struggling with, but the hope that he would one day, that her prayers would be answered, that all of her suffering, all of her sacrifice was going towards this good, was going to this, the idea, the redemption of her son who is going to be...
And husband.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Both
people,
of them.
People forget about that guy.
Yeah. Jesus didn't.
Yeah. Ooh.
So anyway,
Nice.
so maybe
Yeah.
you tell the story.
Just another example I was thinking about as we were preparing for dinner was Jesus in the desert. You think about what was the first thing that the devil tempted Jesus with?
Food.
Yeah, stop suffering.
Mm-hmm.
It says he fasted and prayed for 40 days, and he was very hungry. I think the biggest understatement in the Bible,
Right.
maybe in history. And so the devil shows up and says, hey, stop suffering. Make this food and eat it. No need to suffer. And he says, no. There is a higher cause of my suffering. There's a purpose I'm doing this.
Yeah. But I think to both these stories you just told, like the thief who did reject the suffering, Malchus. I'm trying to
I
think
can't
about.
recall.
I'm trying to play the Passion of the Christ in my head because I remember he says the guy's name over there. Anyway, that
might have been the guy who got his ear cut off.
Oh, that's right. That's the guy who got his ear. Yep, you're right. Okay. Anyway,
Just the good thief and the bad thief.
right.
Mm-hmm.
They're known for their sins.
There's like it's natural to reject suffering. In many ways, this is a very normal, natural response because there's something deep within us that says, "I wasn't made for this. This is not in accordance with my fulfillment of my destiny." Because suffering is this byproduct, is this thing we have to deal with now because of the fall. So I think it's important to realize that this rejection of suffering, which is a natural, normal, initial reaction that you may have,
Maybe in some instances.
I mean, but
I think
it's only through training in this gift of the Holy Spirit that you can overcome.
But I think that a mother or a father has a natural instinct to take away suffering from their child.
What I'm saying is that you, as the person experiencing the suffering, have a natural reaction against it because we know deep within us, I wasn't made for this.
Right.
If you have a thorn in your foot and you're suffering, your
Yeah.
instinct
Is
pull
to
the
take
thorn
it
out.
out.
Right.
Because just on a basic level, suffering usually means something's not right. It's not good for my self-preservation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we have to first, I think, recognize this, that yes, I do have this reaction against suffering. And that's an important part, I think, because it's God's little way of telling us all, you weren't made for this. You were actually made for something more than this. But this can be the way to get there.
Yeah. I think default position is that we avoid or eliminate suffering. The opposite of that, to actually, nobody defaults to like, oh yeah, I'm just going to suffer.
Right.
Like the instinct is to not suffer. So it takes an act of the will to say, no, I will suffer.
Yes, exactly. Because you wouldn't go throw yourself in a thorn bush for no reason. Like say, oh, you know what?
Yeah.
I'd like to suffer. Now, if you're experiencing
There's a movie of some guys who did stuff like that, but I think the other reason was to sell copies of the movie.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's not a virtue.
Yeah.
But if you're experiencing great temptation and then you throw yourself into the thorn bush in order to subdue your flesh, that's a different thing. So suffering can be a tricky fine line to walk. Like one thing I always question about is like flagellation, self-flagellation, and many of the great saints practice this. To me, it's hard for me to square intellectually that practice with the dignity of the body and stuff. So I don't have the answers at all.
But I also think many great saints were commanded under obedience not to.
Yes,
So
I'm sure.
There's knowing the purpose of the suffering is fundamental.
But I think also this virtue is, we can also
it should be said, it's a gift of the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
More so than it is it's a virtue, but it is a gift of the Holy Spirit. So it's something that we could pray for and maybe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure. But I think that we all experience like that in this like microwave culture of having instant stuff. It's this idea of having of struggling for something for a long time and not hearing the answer. Like, why, God, are you not answering this prayer? Why am I having to carry this cross? Or why, these people aren't having to carry this. Why am I the one that's struggling with this?
Yeah.
This idea is tough to reconcile. However, I think that everybody has experienced a time where maybe they've done a physical feat that took them a long time to do, or maybe they were studying something that took them a long time to get to actually understanding it.
Yeah.
It took me a long time in high school to run a 400-meter dash under 60 seconds. But I practiced for a long time to get that to do that. And when it finally happened, it felt like I had this appreciation for it much more than if I would have just stretched halfway and then just started running the first time I did it. So I think that there's this gift that Christ gives us back of one, longanimity like takes us out of ourselves and makes us realize that we're not in control. It points us upward. It points us towards God to realize that God, I have to do everything through God. But it also tells us, it shows us like, listen, you could appreciate these things that we're supposed to work for after a long period of time. Like, how much sweeter was it that St. Monica, saw her son be baptized and received into the church after 30 years of praying?
Because of the 30 years,
Right.
the baptism was sweeter for her. Yeah.
Right.
Or it wouldn't have happened without her suffering.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think we can learn to appreciate it more as well. So when we get back, we can continue talking about longanimity with Father Ketterer here in the studio. Jim and Juan are here as well. We'll be right back. Sorry, I rambled there for a second, but I was hoping that kind of made sense.
Adam, I forgive you.
Thank you.
I really do.
We were practicing some longanimity there.
Yeah. Paul, well, you're welcome.
The name was Dismas of the
Dismiss? Oh, yeah.
Dismiss.
Questions. A couple of questions.
I want to know what Father Longanecker has to say about longanimity.
Oh, by the way, I thought you were gonna say
What
the
is the,
ocean after
but who's the saint
longness
over
monster.
Adam's shoulder?
After what?
The longness monster.
Oh, Saint Gervais.
Oh, the
Okay.
Loch Ness monster.
Longanimity, the longness monster. That's what I thought you were going with.
Well, he's talking about a sea anemone.
Yeah, that's like.
It's Loch Ness, not Long Ness monster. Just so you know.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because he lives in the loch.
Yeah, there's somebody who Kathy asks if you have something that is causing you to suffer, do you just accept it and try not to alleviate it?
I think it depends on what it is. So yesterday I had a headache after celebrating a couple masses, confessions, catechesis, dinner, presentation, whatnot, and I thought, I still have some time I want to spend with my students. I can't even think because I have a headache. I'm going to take some Advil, relieve the suffering, so that I can continue
doing God's will.
Right.
doing that ministry. If it was just me going home at the end of the day, maybe I could say, you know what, I can handle this headache, offer it for some souls. Or maybe I'm just weak and say, no, I want to take my Advil and not have a headache tonight.
Because this is where you can get into scruples. Because people will adopt this attitude of, it's wrong of me to take Advil. Almost as if now I'm getting into like bordering on sin because I'm seeking to relieve this suffering. And that is 100% wrong. It might be virtuous of you to offer up the suffering, but you are in no way required. I mean, it's not like saints didn't take pain medicine, So,
I mean, there's a virtue in relieving the suffering of others.
Mhm.
So clearly, suffering itself isn't like you don't have to suffer. So relieving the suffering can be a good too.
right.
Thinking of Padre Pio, Saint Padre Pio, he established a hospital, but he didn't call it a hospital. He called it a home for the relief of suffering. So the whole point of that was for the relief of suffering.
Interesting. I did not know that.
So yes,
Shall we go?
I'm all
let's
for
keep going.
relieving suffering,
Yeah, me too. Especially my own.
but only when we need to.
Yeah. I need to.
Yes.
Yeah. One of these days, someone will give me a better partner.
You shouldn't speak about your wife like that.
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles, here with Adam Minahan and Father Bryan Ketterer. We're talking about longanimity, also known as long suffering. See, I think this is one of those virtues that I hope to teach and really pass on to my enemies. I think this is what God meant. I think this
If
is
you're
what
willing the good of the other.
this is
which
what
right.
Jesus intended when he said, love your enemies. Give them the virtues, man. And gosh darn it, enemies, I'm going to give you this one. long suffering. You're
Love 'em
welcome.
into heaven.
I'm pretty sure I got it all figured out now.
Yeah.
Are you
Okay.
willing them the suffering or the ability to endure the suffering that they have?
Good thing is I'm Catholic. It's a both and.
I don't know if it's good
I
to
don't-
will
I
someone
don't-
suffering.
Yeah, I don't think.
It's for their own good.
I did
Look,
mention.
they wouldn't be my enemies if they didn't need the suffering, okay?
I do want to make a point of clarification. I remember last break I said that it's closer to magnanimity. Longanimity is closer to magnanimity
Okay.
than patience.
Mhm.
However, St. Thomas does say that longanimity and patience go hand in hand. They're used simultaneously because you're still-
Simultaneously or like
or not
interchangeably?
as back and forth. I mean,
Synonyms?
yeah. Well, no, not
Synonymity?
Ooh.
longanimity.
I like it.
Here, I can probably actually pull this up in.
So I think, just speaking about suffering, I was thinking about the way that we as Christians deal with suffering versus maybe the world or other religions. Buddhism, basically, one of their first principles is life is suffering. There is suffering. And we're like, yeah, couldn't agree more. Like,
Yeah, that is
anyone
true.
who's lived for more than any time at all, like 1
Right.
second, they know suffering.
Right.
A child comes out of the womb, knows suffering.
Crying.
We all know suffering.
Right.
And then they say, okay, well, we must remove all detachment, all passion, desires, so that we don't suffer. If we're not attached to anything, then we won't suffer.
Right.
We can't be hurt, basically. And Christians say, actually, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to embrace the passions, desires, love others, and endure suffering for that sake. Like we're willing to endure suffering.
Right.
And that's what the martyrs say, and the saints. Like, yeah, we'll suffer for love of the other, of God, of neighbor, whoever.
Right, and I mean that's why Jesus says, pick up your cross and follow me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you can't seek Christ without the cross. You can't have
Right.
Christ without the cross.
Because suffering's just, it's a reality. It's here. So what do we do with it? That's the
Yeah,
question.
it really is one of the most beautiful elements of the Christian faith that I think stands. What is it about Christianity that makes it stand out so much? I think this is one of them, because otherwise, if you don't believe in anything and you experience suffering, you will despair. I mean, you will ultimately everyone will despair at some point. When you suffer enough for long enough, no matter how easy your temperament, eventually you will despair. But the Christian faith takes this reality and gives it understanding in that your suffering is not meaningless.
Right.
It was
You can have
through
hope.
suffering, it was specifically through Christ's suffering that we were all redeemed. I mean, that was exactly why we're all have this pathway to heaven. And so, when Paul says that I'm making up what is lacking in the suffering of Christ, I remember when the first time I heard that, I was like, that is scandalous. Like,
Yeah.
Paul,
talking about?
you're getting a little carried away, my
Yeah.
friend.
Pump your brakes, Paul.
Right. But, then when I understood it, when someone explained it all to me, how we're the body of Christ, and so our sufferings are what's lacking in the sufferings of Christ. We need to offer it up. Should we talk about that phrase?
Offer it up?
Offer it up.
Or did you have...
No. I mean, we can go ahead and then we can.
Because that
finish.
used to be, I think, baby boomers, or maybe the people just older than the baby boomers, raised by the nuns. That was something that they were incredibly familiar with. That was like the phrase they all knew. Offer it up, offer it up. But people don't really talk about that as much anymore, about taking your sufferings. And it took me a long time to figure out mechanically, what do I do? How do I offer it up? And finally I've learned it's really an act of the will.
Yeah.
Of that I'm just taking these sufferings and I'm emotionally, mentally, whatever you want to say it, saying I'm going to embrace this suffering, Lord, and join it with yours, and it becomes redemptive.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is embracing it, saying not just I'm resisting, push it away, but to be able to offer it up, or offer it to the Lord, or offer it for the sake of somebody else. You have to actually take it as your own first. You have to embrace it, and then you can offer that as a gift.
Yeah, because I think before you can learn long suffering, you have to learn short suffering. Okay, you're not going to be able to run a marathon if you can't walk.
Well, that's why we regularly try to fast.
Right.
And things like the small things of denying yourself, denying your will, because your will. You have to train it. You have to train your will to reject. I want this. Nope. I'm not going to have that right now.
But it's all about doing it for the right reason. Otherwise, you could end up as a masochist.
Right.
We're not suffering simply to suffer.
Right.
It's not like let's see how tough I am.
Right.
I know I'm not tough. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah, you definitely aren't.
Like, man is not actually very strong. He's weak and pathetic without the grace that is this gift of the Holy Spirit, longanimity. This is why it's so important. And so when we have that right disposition, saying, I am weak, Christ, you are strong. I'm going to, I'm going to be like Simon and carry, let's carry this cross together. That is the game changer, I think, is when it's about having the right disposition in your suffering.
Yeah, there's three things that St. Thomas talks about, the beauty of longanimity. I think he pulls some from St. Augustine, but first, longanimity beautifully acknowledges and validates the suffering of those who wait, which is kind of what we've already talked about. Secondly, longanimity points us beyond ourselves to God. Like, the greatest good that we all yearn for is in union with God, and Christian hope is founded on the promise that He will actually fulfill this desire. Like, He Himself will fulfill this desire that we that we have, that we're born with. I think that's also why we constantly try to put these finite things that make us happy into the infinite. Try to substitute the infinite for the finite, and that's why you see all these. That's why we have all this money, like per capita, we have the highest paid people in the world, yet we have the highest suicide rate. Why? Because we've put all of our time and effort and thought into these finite things, thinking that they will.
Yeah, we put our hope there,
right? Instead of hope in Jesus. And then finally, longanimity reminds us that God waits for us too. Christ bore patiently the weaknesses and incomprehensions of those surrounding him whenever he was around. Like, he's constantly waiting for us to come to him to receive his mercy. He's constantly waiting for us to come to him. Yeah. And he's having to wait for us to be to actually act on that.
Yeah. That's what I think a lot in terms of the tabernacle. Jesus is just waiting there.
Waiting for us.
We can go and pray to him, or we cannot. He's going to wait for us either way. I mean, he'll wait until the last day of our life, if that's how long it takes for us to come.
Yeah,
right.
And I mean, think about
when
that.
you show up, he doesn't say, "Hang on, let me finish what I'm doing first."
Right. In fact, when you show up, he's been waiting for 2,000 years for this very moment. That's something that kind of gave me the chills whenever I first heard that, was the idea of he was waiting for this moment to be with you for 2,000 years, waiting for you.
Yeah, and even thinking
for that moment.
About the gospel from this past Sunday, the lost and found, the prodigal son, the scripture seems to imply that the father was waiting for his son to return, because it said while he was a long way off.
Yeah, he was just watching for him.
Yeah. I don't think you just had like a house cam, security camera, like, oh, somebody came by, let's check the camera. Oh, it's my son.
Yeah, or like some
he was there
GPS
waiting-
alert.
Yeah, he was there waiting for his son to return, or maybe not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he may have waited fruitlessly.
Yeah, we have no idea how
Yeah.
long he was waiting.
And
Yeah,
he could have
it's
waited,
true.
and the son never came back. But he still would have been there waiting.
Yep.
Out of love for the son. I mean, that's
Yeah,
part of
so
it.
he was waiting. He was suffering for a purpose, for a higher end.
But what is so transformative about this suffering is that we have to learn to endure certain things. And when you read the saints, like when you read St. John of the Cross or St. Faustina or St. Therese, they eventually in their life come to this point where they have become so in love with suffering that they have become so in love with Christ that their greatest suffering is not being with him in heaven.
Yeah, I mean, that's the definition of hell.
Right, is this that they feel this
You suffer
great
because you're not with
chasm
God.
between them, and that's what this gift of the Holy Spirit really has the ability to do, is to transform us completely, so that everything of this life becomes nothing but is totally worthless. I mean, it doesn't mean anything to us. The only thing that really matters, so we see reality as a form of prudence as well, where you see reality
The way it is.
the way they are, right?
Right. And this is a sub virtue of fortitude, which I think is really cool, because obviously fortitude, courage, it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot to say, I'm willing to suffer on behalf for a long time.
Yeah.
It's not like this week I'm going to suffer. It's like, no. I mean, there's some things that you have to give up, or, there's some people who, my sister and brother-in-law, they have a severely retarded boy, who's cerebral palsy, and that is something that they absolutely love him, but that's a cross that they have to bear.
It's not going away.
It's not going away anytime
Right.
soon. I mean, there's a lot of things that are part of them being having that boy, Henry, that they have to deal with.
Many beautiful things.
Yeah.
but-
Absolutely.
I mean, I'd say heroic suffering that they
Hero-
went through. Being there
absolutely.
with them.
because they didn't know how long he was
Yeah.
going to live.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was just, that was heroic suffering.
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
anyway, that's why I also like this virtue, because I hadn't heard it before, and it's part of fortitude.
baby steps, though. Baby steps.
Baby steps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Father Ketterer, thanks so much for this
Heck yeah,
drink. It
thanks
was
for having me
awesome.
back
Can you
on.
give us your priestly blessing,
Yeah.
us and our listeners?
Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
May Almighty God bless you, the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
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 Cheers to Jesus.
I thought you were going to do your cheers to Jesus. That's
No,
the point
well, I didn't know.
how we were going to end it.
I mean, that was good.
Yeah.
Thanks for the beer.
Yeah, that was
That was
delicious.
delicious.
That was
Thank you.
unique. I will never forget this beer.
Yeah, it is. I was trying to say, like, God, what is it like? Because it's kind of like it's
Really
kind of
like
like
a sweet
a port,
cognac.
like a
Yeah.
port even.
Because the sweetness of it.
Yeah.
Alright, I'm stopping now.
Oh, streaming?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm assuming there was probably... Yeah, that's good.
Ciao, ciao.